Good morning, everyone. This is meeting number 21 of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, Thursday, June 16th, 2016. And I would remind everyone that again today that we are televised, and so if you would turn your cell phones or your iPads or whatever might sound when they receive a message, if you would turn them down or mute them. That would be great. Today we are conducting a hearing on Via Rail Canada Inc., a special examination report of the spring 2016 reports of the Auditor General of Canada. Appearing before us today we have from the Office of the Auditor General of Canada, Maurice Laplante, the Assistant Auditor General, and René Beliveau, Principal. Also from Via Rail Canada, we're pleased to have Yves Desjardins Siciliano, the President and Chief Executive Officer, Patricia Jasmine, the Chief Financial Officer, Jane Mowat, Lead Director and Chairperson of the Audit and Finance Committee, and Bruno Riendo, Director, Safety and Environment, Risk Management and Corporate Safety. We will also have an opening statement from the Assistant Auditor General, Mr. Laplante, and then a statement from the President and CEO of Via Rail. And I would also tell the committee now that in the last 15 minutes or 20 minutes, 15 minutes probably, we're going to reserve that for committee business. And so we have some items that will come out of the steering committee that met yesterday. And just to our guests as well, this morning I will table a report in the House, and so when I leave, Ms. Mendez will take the chair, and just as a courtesy, I just wanted you to know that it's not what you said, the reason I'm leaving, but it's to table the report. So first of all, I would invite the Assistant Auditor General, Monsieur Laplante, to bring his opening statement, please.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving us this opportunity to discuss our special examination report on Via Rail Inc. I'm accompanied today by Mr. René Beliveau, the principal responsible for this audit. A special examination of a Crown corporation is somewhat similar to a performance audit. In particular, a special examination seeks to determine whether the Crown Corporation's systems and practices provide reasonable assurance that its assets are safeguarded and controlled, its resources are managed economically and efficiently, and its operations are carried out effectively. Our examination covered the period between November 2013 and September 2015. Our examination identified a significant deficiency in the corporation's governance. We found that despite Via's efforts to define a long-term strategic direction, the corporation still did not have a long-term plan or direction approved by the federal government. For several years now, Via's 5-year corporate plan and funding have been approved only on a short-term basis and often late in the corporation's fiscal year. In that context, Via could not fulfill its mandate as economically effectively and effectively as desired. If it continues, this significant deficiency could even compromise the corporation's medium and long-term viability.
In several areas. For example, in the strategic planning area, we noted that the corporation had the key elements of a risk management framework and had a performance measurement process that enabled the VIA to follow up on its operations and adequately communicate its results. In the operation area, we found that VIA had systems and practices that enabled it to meet the needs of its customers, mitigate safety risk, and ensure the reliability of its operations, the safeguarding and control of its assets, and the quality of its services. We also identified a room for improvement in some areas. In particular, VIA needs to improve its profitability analysis mechanisms, the documentation of its safety management system, and the mechanisms used to measure the effectiveness of that system. VIA also needs to pursue planned improvements to its project management systems and practices, which did not adequately support the implementation of certain significant projects of the Capital Investment Program approved by the government in 2007 and 2009. We further found that VIA had not met its strategic objectives of increasing revenues and ridership so as to ensure its longer-term viability. The results analysis for VIA indicated that between the 2010 and 2014 fiscal years, revenues increased by only $5 million, whereas total operating costs increased by $61 million. We also noted that ridership decreased by 350,000 passengers during the same period. De même, la ponctuation.
In addition, on-time performance of trains has worsened significantly since 2010, from 82% to 76%, largely because of the significant increase in congestion on the rail network that VIA has to use. Moreover, VIA did not succeed in increasing the frequency of train departures as it anticipated when it negotiated the renewal of its main service agreement with the railway companies that own the railway tracks. The corporation will need to find lasting solutions to those problems if it is to ensure its long-term viability.
Recommendations and indicated that it would act quickly to address our concerns. However, since our audit was completed in September 2015, I cannot comment on any measures that have been taken since then. The committee may wish to ask VIA officials to clarify what measures have been taken in response to our recommendations. Mr. Chair, this concludes my opening remarks. We would be pleased to answer any question the committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Laplante. And we'll now move to Monsieur Desjardins Siciliano for his opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you mentioned, I am joined today by, to my right, Ms. Jane Mowat, the lead director and chairperson of the Audit and Finance Committee. To our right is Bruno Riendo, the director of Safety and Risk Management. And to my left, our chief financial officer, Madame Patricia Jasmin. At Via Rail, our mandate is to provide a safe, efficient, reliable, environmentally sustainable transportation services that meet the needs of Canadian travelers from coast to coast. That is a mandate that Via Rail management through the years provided itself and governs its activities, as Via does not have enabling legislation that states out specifically its mandate, nor does the board or its CEO have a mandate from the government. I've had the pleasure of serving as president and CEO of Via Rail since May 2014. Since that time, many steps have been taken to revitalize and refocus our service to Canadians, and specifically to try to turn the tide on the increasing deficit, sinking ridership, and overall bad performance of the corporation. 2015 was a year of significant progress in these regards for Via Rail. The corporation improved its services by focusing on customers and their needs. The shift towards customer centricity led to simultaneous increases in ridership and revenue for the first time in many years. Including the month of June 2016, we will have experienced 18 months of straight growth in revenue month over month. We will also have experienced 3 out of 5 quarters of increased ridership, increased revenue, and increased average revenue per customer, an achievement never realized in the 4-year history of Via Rail. This significant accomplishment allowed us to reduce the subsidy provided by the Government of Canada for the first time by almost 12% as compared to last year in 2015. The results are promising as we move forward towards 2017, which not only marks Canada's 150th anniversary, but more personally marks Via Rail's 40th anniversary. Coupled with our ambitious plans to modernize the future of intercity passenger rail in Canada, which I'll talk about a little while later, we're very optimistic about the future of our Crown Corporation. That's why we're pleased to be here today to address the Auditor General's Special Examination Report and ensuing recommendations with which we all agreed. First, I'd like to formally thank the Auditor General's Office for their cooperation throughout this process. Nobody likes to be audited, but if you're going to be audited, might as well be audited by the Auditor General of Canada, because they do it with sensitivity. We work very closely with the Auditor General's Office under the Financial Administration Act on this special report, as we do every year on our annual report that is conducted by the Office of the Auditor General. The period aimed by this report is November 2013 and September 2015, and therefore over half of that period was not under my watch, but I assume full responsibility for its outcomes. We viewed this special examination as an opportunity to learn more about our strengths, as well as the areas where we can continue to improve, as I said, as we do every year through the annual audit of the Auditor General. For example, we've implemented a detailed action plan for improving our SMS, our safety management system, and integrating it into our risk management system. VRL's SMS provides the framework to implement our safety policy and to comply with the Railway Safety Act and Safety Management System regulation. And at VIA, the objective when it comes to safety is not to meet regulatory requirements, but to exceed regulatory requirements for the better conduct of our business and to enhance safety of our operations, our people, and our passengers and the public in general. It is also the reference for setting goals, planning, and measuring our safety performance. In 2015, VIA addressed the recommendations from Transport Canada's 2014 SMS audit, complied with revised new SMS regulations, and maintained and fostered strong participation by all employees, all ahead of the required timelines. In addition, we consulted with external experts to benchmark our SMS against leading practices within and outside the industry, in keeping with our commitment to go above and beyond compliance. And I'm happy to say that it is our view, and that of considered external experts, that VIA leads the way in state-of-the-art SMS systems for railways in Canada today. We met the October 1st, 2015 deadline for compliance with the new federal legislation, and we've also taken measures to be able to demonstrate the effectiveness of this new system. In fact, I'm pleased to report that by the end of 2015, we completed an analysis of risks and vulnerabilities, and work is underway to implement mitigation measures by the end of 2016. We're also making significant progress on a number of other issues that were uncovered during the examination. We've increased market discipline in our project management processes, which has resulted in more effective operations and increased revenues. We've put in place a governance structure to ensure better project management follow-up, as VIA manages hundreds of projects every year, mainly capital projects, from infrastructure to train station updates to equipment modifications and renovations. In 2015, we set up a centralized project office. This office has already helped to standardize estimates and measures for risks and benefits, a significant improvement for both a planning and project management perspective. And so I'm happy to report that since then, many current projects, such as infrastructure, bridge repairs, and renovations of stations and other facilities, are forecasted to come in on time and on budget. One example that we're particularly proud of is our in-house developed GPS train tracking safety system, which is a first in North America. The GPS tracking system assists locomotive engineers by providing notifications of upcoming speed changes or restrictions, approaching changes in applicable rules, and upcoming landmarks along the route. VRL has successfully completed the first live road test of its GPS train safety system in order to validate critical foundational system capabilities, accuracy, precision of real-time GPS feed, and track database in a real environment. This was a significant achievement, and further development and testing of the system is ongoing. Furthermore, in 2015, we worked on completing the implementation of a new system containing information on profitability per train. Starting this year, Via Rail will be able to incorporate such information into its decision-making and therefore increase its capability when it comes to managing its revenue. Another area where we've made efficiency improvements is our employee scheduling tools, which are now entirely available online, which gives greater flexibility and convenience to both our employees and management as we plan the schedules of our 2,600 people workforce. We have made also improvements to our customer relationship management process, launched a new mobile application, instituted SMS train status text messaging, all in an effort to address the needs and desires of the modern Canadian traveler. With respect to the Auditor General's recommendations on long-term planning, we agree wholeheartedly that our operational effectiveness would be greatly enhanced through timely, multi-year approval of funding of our long-term plans. In fact, we've worked with Transport Canada towards this objective and obtained a multi-year funding envelope which was 3 years long, ending March 2017. We'll continue to work with Transport Canada and see if we can't come to a 5-year plan fully funded both from an operational and a capital requirement point of view. Should no modification be made to VIA's current mandate, the funding needs will be $850 million in operating funding and $650 million in capital funding for a yearly average of $300 million per year over the next 5 years. Moreover, we have begun working with the government to confirm Via Rail's long-term strategy in order to reverse these trends of increased funding. In 2015, we launched 2 different long-term strategic initiatives aimed at improving Via Rail services, ensuring long-term financial sustainability, and at having the corporation's corporate plan approved by government in a timely manner. The first initiative is to renew our equipment fleet for services in the densely populated and used Quebec City-Windsor corridor, where 90% of our riders and 90% of our revenue come from. Train operations are capital-intensive undertakings. They take multiple years to build out, to plan and to build out, and ongoing maintenance as a high requirement. The rejuvenation of the fleet requires long-term planning and long-term financial commitments. As you may know, Via Rail operates the oldest train sets in North America. The average age of our rolling stock is over 40 years. The average life expectancy of rolling stock typically is more around 25 to 30 years. Thanks to several elements of funding over the last 15 years, Via has refurbished that rolling fleet up to 3 times, but it's coming to end of life. By lengthening our planning horizon, we'll be better able to assess and forecast our fleet renewal needs going forward. The second long-term initiative we're working on is aimed at mitigating issues resulting from having to share tracks with freight trains. Notwithstanding the success we've seen in the past 18 months, we agree with the Auditor General's observation that congestion on shared tracks has made it difficult for Via Rail to thrive alongside other passenger and commuter rail operators in Canada. Nos voyageurs s'attendent à ce que notre service soit fiable.
Our travelers expect a reliable service with more frequent departures and competitive travel times. As we operate on dual usage tracks with freight and passenger trains sharing a single rail network, our on-time performance has deteriorated proportionally with the freight industry's significant growth in recent years. While we acknowledge the commercial industry's role as an important economic generator in several Canadian regions, for Canada's only intercity national passenger service, this has had proportional and negative impacts on Via Rail's on-time performance. As freight traffic increases, we battle multiplying rail maintenance issues and constant challenges to our business-critical targets. At the 150th anniversary of Canada, than in 1967. To illustrate this point, when Via Rail operates on its own tracks, of which we own close to 300 kilometers of tracks between Quebec and Ontario, our trains can operate at higher speeds and are on schedule 98% of the time. From our perspective, sharing a single network is detrimental for both via rail and freight carriers. For passenger trains that do 100 kilometers an hour as opposed to freight trains traveling much more slowly, it is almost impossible. That is why our management team developed a plan to build railway infrastructure devoted to passenger train services, creating a new dedicated rail network, the scope and route designation to be determined by the federal government and in the interest of future investors. The first phase of this important project is intended to allow us to operate on our own tracks and thereby increase the frequency of our trains, reduce the traveling time, and offer a more reliable service. In figures, this would be tripling the number of daily departures between Quebec, Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, tripling the number of passengers on these trains, and eliminating the deficit of Via Rail for the Government of Canada. This new network could eventually extend to the current corridor between Quebec as far as Windsor. The benefits of such an initiative are both economic and environmental, through anticipated job creation and labor productivity gains, as well as significant GHG reductions. There will be more than 300,000 jobs created as a result of this. There will also be a significant GHG reduction. There will be a reduction of 11 million tons of carbon over 30 years, 350 million tons, 1,000 tons eliminated every year. We estimate that in offering more modern services, our ridership will increase from 2.1 at the present time to 7 million passengers annually. And this will eliminate 5 million car trips every year. Through this ambitious undertaking, our goal is to implement permanent solutions that will put an end to recurring operating deficits and fickle ridership.
Federal funding. We're encouraged by the support we've received through Federal Budget 2016 for this project and intend to submit a formal proposal to the government for this project later in the year. For long-distance services in Western and Eastern Canada and in remote regions, we will continue our efforts with the track owners to improve on-time performance. In the current contractual context, though, and given the very different operational and financial frameworks of freight companies versus passenger rail service, possible improvements are limited at this time. Via Rail intends to initiate discussions with Transport Canada in order to identify possible alternatives to the current contractual framework, where Via does not have any leverage in negotiating with freight railway owners. In closing, I'd like to thank the committee for offering this opportunity to highlight the ways in which Via Rail is addressing the Auditor General's recommendations. I hope that as members of Parliament and as members of this committee, you feel better informed, and I thank you for your continued support of our business, as many of you are riders on our trains, and your support as parliamentarians. I'd be pleased to take questions, and if I can't answer them, I have my colleagues to chip in. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you very much for your presentations. And we'll now move into the first round of questioning, and we'll go to Ms. Zahid, please, for 7 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. And thanks to all the witnesses for coming in today, taking the time out to appear before the committee. So my first question is related to the safety management system. I understand that VIA's safety management system is in place to ensure compliance with safety and security regulations and the best practices. While it appears, according to the report, that you have identified and assessed and developed mitigation mechanisms for operational risks, this is only the first step. If you are indeed unable to show the system is actually working and achieving its goals, there may as well be no system at all. In your response, you committed to being able to demonstrate the effectiveness of your new system by April 1st. Now we are here on June 16th. So is the system working effectively?
So yes, thank you for your question. So there were 2 key dates in the implementation of the new system. The first one was October to be ready, and then to be ready for audit April 1st, and we were ready in both cases. So the system was in place by October 1st. We were ready for audit in April 1st. We were informed recently that the audit will take place in the fall, in September, I believe, of 2016. And so in order to satisfy ourselves of our readiness, we launched an audit ourselves through PwC, EEM, so a third-party firm conducted an audit. The report we will have tomorrow, but early indications are that we are in full compliance with the requirements, and any adjustments will be made between now and the official audit that will take place in September.
Is the system working effectively?
It is.
Are you satisfied? Like, can you give some examples how you think that the system is working effectively?
Well, there are two aspects to the SMS system. One is education and information of employees, so it is integrated into the operation. And then the second one is documentation of measures and actions taken, on a day-to-day basis. So on the first one, we have, in the course of the last year, launched under the leadership of Bruno an extensive education exercise with our workforce, and auditing different areas of the business, made sure that the operational realities reflect the new SMS requirements. On the second element of documentation, we are documenting all the measures that are taken in regards to safety management, and then we audit these measures to ensure that these mitigation measures are actually implemented. And so Bruno is responsible for that exercise, and we've added to that a layer of management oversight. So, for example, at the management committee, we have a review of findings and mitigation measures on a monthly basis, and therefore we ensure compliance by greater awareness, as I said, by the workforce in general, by senior management in particular, and then by a dedicated oversight of the Director of System Management System.
Okay. Next question is with regards to the recommendation in paragraph 46 that you improve documentation related to safety of tracks via users that are owned by other companies. In your reply, you state that you have no contractual or other rights providing you with access to that information. This is both surprising and concerning and seems like a serious oversight. How can you be paying to use this track and transporting Canadians across it with no assurance of the safety of that track? And frankly, the response that VIA will raise this issue during negotiation is not at all satisfying or satisfactory. So what will you do to immediately address this issue?
So we share your point of view. The only comment I would make, though, is that when it comes to the large Class 1 carriers, the CNs and CPs, we are dealing with companies who are reputable and who have their own imperatives when it comes to safety in terms of their merchandise and their people. And so we rely on that fact. The fact that we have to rely on that and that we don't have access to the trackage, don't have access to information, is a reality. So with regards to short lines or smaller operators, there we typically are able, because we are the dog on that, we are the bigger player in that relationship, and so we're able to enforce audit rights and visit rights. And that's how we came to the determination that on Vancouver Island we had to suspend service. Gaspé, Montreal Gaspé service was suspended because we inspected the track and we determined it was unsafe. And then the provincial government came to the same conclusions, both in BC and in Quebec. But when it comes to CN and CP, these are large corporations, of which we are the David in that scenario, and we do not have the contractual or the commercial leverage to demand and enforce such rights. And as I said, the only comfort that we get is that they have their own operation at risk, their own reputation, and they have an excellent track record when it comes to safety overall. So it is not obviously as good as being able to tell you that our own people have inspected it and are satisfied, but the experience over the last 40 years has been that they tend to take the right measures at the right time. For example, last year between Toronto and Winnipeg, VIA was shut down for 33 days because CN came to the conclusion that their trackage was unstable, and so we suspended service for 33 days. But we weren't able to inspect that track as to why it was unstable, and we did not get to inspect that track to know that it was fixed properly. We had to rely on their representation that it was fixed properly and that their trains were running on it, and then we put our trains. So are we satisfied with that? No. Would we like to be able to inspect? Yes. But in a commercial relationship, sometimes you have to assume the position of being the underdog, and in this case, that's the position of Via Rail.
So, do you have any suggestions in regards to that?
Well, I think it's these companies. Obviously, CN is a former sister company, as a Crown corporation, and CN being at the foundation of this country, both have a social consciousness and a public policy mindset in some regards. But other than goodwill and good faith, there's not
ultimately,
much
you are
we can do.
transporting the Canadians from.
Sorry?
Ultimately, the Canadians are traveling
Yeah, of
via
course.
rail on those tracks.
Thank you.
We'll now move to the opposition and to Monsieur Gaudin. Monsieur, vous avez 7 minutes.
You have 7 minutes. Thank you, Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending this meeting this morning. I think that your presence is encouraging, encourages us to believe in Via Rail. You know that as parliamentarians, our work here in the Public Accounts Committee is to ensure that public money is properly invested and optimized. You also understand that when we receive a report from the Auditor General informing us that the 5-year business plan were approved only for a short term and often late in the financial year, and in such a context, VIA was unable to carry out its mandate with the appropriate economy and efficiency. This serious deficiency could compromise the medium and long-term viability of the corporation. And we as parliamentarians have questions about this. You have public money, you have a mandate, and this is what is said in the Auditor General's report. I can understand that, Mr. Desjardins Siciliano, you've just taken on your mandate and you have implemented certain measures. But do you think that in the long and medium term, these measures, as well as measures that will be implemented by your team, will allow for medium and long-term viability of VIA? Thank you for your question. The arrival of the new government and the budget in March certainly does give us a great deal of hope, because in a very short period of time, this government and the new minister were rapidly informed about the situation of Via Rail, and there was funding made available for the renewal of the fleet. We are in the process of completing this work that will result in a government decision to provide a new fleet for this corridor. This fall, then, the budget of 2017. This is certainly a very positive measure for Via Rail. And the same budget also refers to the need to modernize Via Rail and its high frequency trade that was also increase its punctuality, its ridership, and help deal with the deficit. This decision to modernize and the renewal of the fleet are both encouraging steps. The fact remains that the government administrative processes are very cumbersome, and when the Auditor General comes to this conclusion, it is based on a reality where, in spite of a decision made in the budget by the government to provide funding to Via Rail for capital works, the actual mechanics, the machinery approval, Treasury Board and all the rest, means that very often this money is made available to Via Rail months later, or in some cases at the end of the year when it was announced. And very often there is a deadline for the use. When we are talking about the construction of infrastructure, it is only possible to do this in the summer. I can give you an example. 2 years ago, when the Government of Canada announced that $120 million would be available for Via Rail infrastructure between Montreal and Toronto, this announcement was made in the month of November of the previous year, and the funds were made available in the middle of July of the following year. And at that time, it was far too late to begin work because we have to have a call for tenders. We have to choose our suppliers. So we get into October, November, there's snow. The decision is November is only valid for 2 years. And once you obtain the funding and are able to do the building, you only have 12 months left. It's this type of situation where a long-term application providing funding for 5 years would mean that even if it takes you 6 months or a year for administrative matters, you still have time to make plans for work. In a railway area, particularly when in North America the railway sector is undergoing a renaissance, supply is a problem, whether it be steel for the rails, whether it be signage or rolling stock. There are lead times that can be from 6 to 12 to 18 months. At the present time, lots of railways are being built throughout North America for passenger trains. So we're going to have a long-term application so that we are in a position to deal with these government administrative procedures that won't be changing immediately, and to ensure that we are able to implement our projects. Historically, if you look at the past 10 years, a number of these capital projects have suffered because of this lack of planning, and what the effect was is that the project was begun and then they had to come to a stop because funding was no longer available. So, excuse me for interrupting. We don't have much time. I can realize that administrative measures can make it more difficult for you. Let's talk about the future. I make use of VIA, and I can't quite say that in the Quebec or Ottawa corridor, the punctuality is not bad. I normally arrive on time. In the Quebec City-Windsor project, it would appear that this is the cornerstone for the development and the prosperity of Via Rail. What will happen if this project doesn't come to fruition and you are unable to carry it out for the financial health of Via? The deficit went from 311 million, 240, and if this were not to go ahead, we would expect that in the next 7 years, the deficit would amount to 450 to 500 million. And the ridership, which was at 3.9 million, would probably be 3.4, 3.2 million. The ridership will certainly decline, and punctuality will also decline when freight trains start functioning more frequently. The operational deficit then will increase, and there will have to be an important amount of capital made available for the renewal of the remainder of the Via Rail fleet. We're not talking only about Quebec, the Windsor corridor. We're talking about the Maritimes and Western Canada, and this rolling stock is 50 years old as well. If we do not have a dedicated track in the corridor, then the deficit will simply continue to increase and ridership will decline. And a future government will have to make a decision to eliminate Via Rail or do something else.
Move to Mr. Christopherson, please, for 7 minutes.
Very good. Thank you, Chair, and thank you all for attending today. First off, just to acknowledge, it's always a struggle to not bring one's personal feelings when we've been delayed on the train or using these services. So I'll step that aside and do my best. But I found myself reading through this in a rather unusual position. Having been here now, a dozen years, I usually get more riled up the more I'm reading the report, and not that wasn't there to some degree, but I need the Auditor General to help me out, because the last thing I want to do is let somebody off the hook when they need to be held to account. The last thing, because that's what we're all about. But I got to tell you, every time I got into what were the serious concerns raised by the AG's office, I found a third party being, in my interpretation of reading the report, to be at fault, i.e., the governance issue was the strongest language, and the strongest criticism comes in failing to achieve strategic objectives and therefore in governance and overseeing those strategic goals. And yet, the report indicated every time that it was the timing of the government in terms of the funding that they received. The timing of it and the amount of it was consistently a problem. In terms of the efficiency of the organization, this business where the tracks you run on, you don't control, and then the whole idea that by policy, I guess by national policy, freight comes before people. So given those kind of pressures that are outside the control of VIA, what are the key issues that are left once we pull those things away? What are the things that we should be focusing on with VIA? Because I've got a whole lot to say about wanting the behavior to change of the government to get their act together, but I'm going to come to that a little later. But I'm asking the AG's office, if we take out the response, the parts of this that are sort of the fault of the previous government in terms of funding, timing, and amounts, and if we take away in terms of the operation of VIA, the fact that the trains or the track and the fact they don't control them is a major impediment to them achieving their efficiencies. When we pull all that away, what are the core criticisms that remain in this report, in your view, as a priority?
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's an interesting question. It is a difficult one.
My finding.
C'est vrai. Merci. En fait,
in fact, the particular points that we raised in the report are clear in that they clearly indicate the impact that this has on VIA's activities. But the reason why it is difficult to answer your particular question is that this particular situation in VIA has been in existence for some time. Funding arrives late. Various other problems that were already raised this morning from the beginning of the meeting. We are aware of them, and this has been the situation for some time. It is difficult to know how VIA would be able to properly manage its activities if we were to set aside these factors. So my answer would be that when we look at the other aspects of the management of the company, there were a number of strengths that we noted. Strategic planning was good, for example. We noted that the corporation was well informed about risks, assessed the risks, and did take appropriate measures. So we did note a number of strengths that led us to believe that if we were to set aside problems relating to government responsibilities or the sharing of tracks, I would say that the corporation is generally well administered.
Bothered me because it left me with less to get riled about, which is what I do. Let's just tease that out a bit then. I mean, again, it seems like often we're playing a game of gotcha when at the end of the day the ultimate goal of public accounts and the Auditor General is to change behavior so that we don't have any necessity for gotcha. So let me move to another area then, because you just got off the hook for a whole host of things that otherwise you'd be dancing right now. But I got to tell you, I had a lot of sympathy for the fact that a lot of it was out of your control. But in the limited time I have left, and I'll get another chance later, but the other priority I want to talk about is safety. And you raise it in the report, and I've heard what you've said about, but I want to just take one step back from safety and approach it this way.
Mr. Christopherson, I just think maybe it's, that's the problem.
Is that me? As usual, I'm my own problem.
Thank you. Just if we
biggest problem anyway.
If we just keep our phones away from the mic, we have a better sound. Go ahead, Mr. Christopherson.
Thank you, Chair. Safety. Overall, what is the status of the safety, and remember we're televised, what is the status of safety issues as raised by both the union representing the employees that work at Via Rail, but also communities, consumer groups, and other who represent the customers? What is the status of safety issues there? Are there big issues in front of you? Are they sort of business as usual? Have you made great stride? Is the union or consumer representatives, are they putting incredible pressure on, and it's a big important file? What is your interpretation of your relationship with safety in general?
Well, thank you for your question, and it's a very important question. As people, we assume, rightfully, that train services are safe, that it is the safest mode of transport for the users, the operators, and the general public. And therefore, at VIA, it's a constant and daily commitment of all employees that first and foremost, safety is paramount to our operation. It is the cornerstone on which this business is built. And that is why we have quite an enviable safety record at VIA, but it's work that we do every day. We just concluded our collective agreement with our brothers from Unifor on Sunday evening, and in the course of that negotiation, issues related to health and safety, or specifically safety, were not a matter of debate.
Okay.
We're all on the same side, whether it be unionized or non-unionized personnel, senior management, board members, and obviously our shareholders, the Government of Canada, when it comes to that area. So we are very pleased with our safety record, but we do not take it for granted. And when we have issues, we take action. And right here in this town in Ottawa, when I took over in May of 2014, we were having issues at Barrhaven in MP areas region. And we dealt with it right then and there in May and June of that year. And touch wood, the operation there has been quite reliable ever since. So we take that very seriously because, as I said, it is the cornerstone on which this business is built. We all should assume that taking a train is the safest way to travel, and we are committed to maintaining that. So it is not currently an issue where we have challenges.
Thank you very much. We'll now move back to the government side and to Mr. Area, please, for 7 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Desjardins. I really want to put on record the efforts you have been making in reaching out to us, especially the MPs and others, where we have got quite a number of crossings, and also want to put on record your employees in the Ottawa office. They have been quite good in their communication to us. They keep us updated on the things happening. As you know, my riding in Nepean has got 6 crossings, and each one of them very highly exceed the number of the traffic that crosses those crossings. And we had that unfortunate accident a few years back that resulted in the loss of 9 lives. So the grade crossings in my riding is of very, very high priority to me. So I want to know whether have you included grade crossings in Nepean in any of your plans?
So since way before the tragic incidents that took place at the Barrhaven crossings a few years back, VIA, when it was just the user, not the owner, at the time the infrastructure was owned by the freight companies, VIA indicated its concern about maintaining at-grade crossings in that area.
Now, I understand. Because of the limited time, I know that that was the what I'm asking is that in your future plans, we know that the federal government has allocated $15 million for the Woodruff crossing exclusively. That has to be used by next year. My question is that have you included grade crossings in Nepean in any of your future plans?
Well, so what I was leading to is the conclusion that we would like to see grade separation, because we were suggesting it before we owned the track. Since we owned the track, we've been asking for it and suggesting it, and we're still suggesting it. But the reality of grade crossing construction is that it is a responsibility of the road authority. So if the road is owned by the municipality, it's municipal responsibility. If it's a provincial road, it's provincial responsibility.
What you're saying is that is the city's responsibilities. As I said, we have got 6 crossings. One, the city is implementing the grade separation there. So we are talking of the budget of close to around $200 million or $300 million. You are saying that is the city's responsibility. Obviously, city cannot afford to spend so much money for one single riding.
Well, the reality is that separating railway from road crossings is a road authority responsibility, because the road authority, or the person who owns the road, put the road over the crossing, over the trackage, to go seize the tax revenue of the land being developed. That's the genesis of it.
So basically what you're saying is that other than the $15 million that has been allotted, that has to be used by the end of next year, there are no plans from your side on the grade separation?
On VIA's side, there are no plans to build or fund grade separation in Ottawa. What we have committed to do is share the cost of the studies that
The
are
study
currently
is
underway.
going on. Study we
And-
know that is going to come out next year.
Yeah.
We all know what the report would be because they are going to recommend that the grade separation be. Now you're saying that you don't have any plans. It's the responsibility of the city, and I know that the city doesn't have that kind of money. So where are we left? Where are the residents of Nepean left?
Well, the cities all over Canada, when they do grade crossings, seek funds from usually their own funds, the province, and usually federal infrastructure funds. So my point is the financial framework, the financial montage of those investments are the responsibility of the road authority. If VIA has to make a contribution, usually it will go to the Government of Canada, its shareholder, and seek funding for those undertakings. But it is extremely rare for VIA to build or pay for grade
So
separation.
that's what I'm asking. So it is not in your current plans now to go to your sole shareholder, ask for any support for these crossings in Nepean?
No, because we're not aware that the City of Ottawa is planning to build a grade crossing.
Then
So
why is that you are participating in the study that is currently being undertaken?
Because we're hoping that the study will nudge them into pursuing grade separation. We're trying to support those who want to see grade separation, because that is what we would like to see happen.
If the city comes up with some sort of proposal requesting support, you are willing to consider it?
We would support any proposal that the city brings forward to any authority for funding for grade separation in Ottawa.
Okay. Changing from my riding, basically, you mentioned about the timing of the funding that is made available to you. Usually, you stated the funding usually comes late, and now you don't have any commitment beyond March 2017 as of now. Do you think the decision will come soon, or do you find is there any change in culture at Transport Canada?
Well, we are preparing the corporate plan now for the following period, and in our conversation with Transport Canada, we will be seeking, at least another 3 year like the last one, or ideally a 5-year plan, but not only on capital this time, but also on operating funding.
So you have not submitted any plans to Transport Canada yet?
I'm sorry?
So you have not submitted any plans to Transport
No,
Canada
not yet.
Okay, that's good. And talking on the new tracks, new network. The first phase, you said is going to. You said there is some interest from the private sector investors for the new track that you are going to have eventually between Quebec and Windsor. Is my understanding correct? That the private sector may be interested in participating with you?
So once the decision is made from a policy point of view that we should build a dedicated infrastructure for passenger rail, what we're suggesting is that funds are available outside of government. Public pension funds, and you saw it with the Caisse de dépôt in Quebec, who's got a $5.5 billion project. So we believe that financing is available outside of the government if the government wishes to seek outside funding.
The last question is that you want to own your tracks, I think possibly between Ottawa and Toronto area. Once it is done, will grade separation be part of it, or somewhere it can come in there?
Well, again, grade separation, depending of what if it's via establishing trackage over a road, then it's our responsibility. But if the road is already there, the grade separation is the road authority's responsibility.
Thank you very much, and thank you. Your time is up. We'll now move back to the opposition and to Mr. Gaudin. Second minute.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chairman. Via Rail's mandate, Government of Canada contributes approximately $400 million to help Via carry out its mandate. The mandate, I believe, is to provide passenger service, intercity services, as well as long haul, and services to regional communities as well. There are Canadian citizens who do not have the privilege to be located along the Quebec-Windsor corridor, or you provide services to such regions at a loss. This explains why the Government of Canada compensates you. What is happening in areas like the Gaspé Peninsula, for example? I realize that the rails do not belong to you, but your mandate does establish an obligation. Everyone seems to be running around in circles. You want to deliver the merchandise. You're not able to make use of rails that are not in compliance with safety standards. How are you able to reconcile all of this? Normally, it's the owner of the railway who is required to carry out the necessary infrastructure investments to bring them up to par so that they can be used in a safe manner. In the case that you referred to, the Gaspé Peninsula, the government of Quebec acquired these rail from the local government, and it will be bringing them. It will be upgrading them with its own funds or funds from other sources. The role of Via Rail is not to invest in rails that are not its ownership, that it doesn't belong, that not belong to it. You are involved in this problem, but I'm thinking then the Auditor General might have something to say about this. Do you have any solutions for this type of situation that can be found in the Gaspé Peninsula that exists in Western Canada and in the north as well? It is a government's responsibility to ensure that that the service provider is able to carry out its mandate. What exactly are we doing to untangle this problem? Funding of infrastructure in Canada historically then is often takes place at 3 levels: municipal, provincial, and federal. And at each government level, priorities have to be established. And the projects have to be related to this. I conclude then that if there is no funding made available for the renovation of infrastructure in the Gaspé Peninsula, it's not one of the priorities either of the local authority in Gaspé Peninsula, or the province in Quebec, or the federal government, because this is where the decisions are made to provide funding for the 3 parties. Once the funding is available, then we can provide the service, as long as it is safe. Since Via Rail is not carrying out its mandate, I'd like to know whether you make any representations at the provincial or municipal level so that they start looking after bringing the tracks up the appropriate level. Once the service was stopped, we made representations, and we've been making representations to the provincial and local authorities relating to the state of the infrastructure. Citizens do contact Via Rail and ask us when we're going to bring back the service, and we give them the answer that I've just given you. And we consult these authorities and we tell them that it's about time for you to start investing on the tracks, but people are asking for the service, but it is not our role to deal with this infrastructure that doesn't belong to us. We are in a delicate situation because we want to cooperate. We want to be able to provide the service because Gaspé is a magnificent route, but we are not funded to provide this service, and it's not up to our discretion to determine where the governments should choose to invest in infrastructure. You simply have the power to suggest, yes. To change the subject here, the upgrading of your light cars, I'd like to know whether this has had an effect on your performance, LRCs. Because, of course, this is not related only to the comfort of the cars, the selection of transport. In the case of passenger train, it's a question of frequency, flexibility as well to change traveling plans. If not, then I would take a car because it's more flexible. The time it takes. Is it as done as quickly as in my car? And is it reliable? If you in fact, are the arrival and departure times what takes place? These are all factors that influence people's decision to take the train. Then it can be the matter of comfort and so forth.
Minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much for being here this morning with us. First of all, to the Auditor General's Office for a very complete report, and secondly, to all of you from Via Rail, Messieurs Desjardins, Siciliano, pour un rapport très dynamique aussi.
You've given us a very dynamic report.
I too had very serious concerns in reading the report, but what you're telling us is that Via Rail is at a turning point, and I would like nothing better than to be here again in a few years and hearing the good news story. That being said, my very serious concerns and what the Auditor General's Office brought out very clearly was the lack of performance measures, be it in the ridership cost, be it in the capital infrastructure program. Just noting on in Exhibit 5, just the analysis there of the evolution, concerning evolution of the replacement of cars. This was not going in the right direction, and if you have ambitions for the future, we don't want to see that go in the right direction either. So perhaps you can share with us how are you tightening up these performance measures, and how will they be reported?
Right. Well, thank you very much for that question. You're right. The Auditor General's comments were absolutely accurate, and they were my own findings when I became the CEO of the corporation. And that is why initiatives like, for example, profitability by train is now a way of us that we have to look at the cost of operating a given train and its profitability or its feasibility, financial viability, versus looking at it as an average of the rail service. So that's an example of changing the way we do things. The Project Management Office was also a recognition of the fact that projects used to be over budget, over time, and that we needed to professionalize the management of capital projects. One has to understand that historically, Via Rail between 1992 and 2006 was quite starved for cash, capital cash, and therefore if you look at the annual reports of Via Rail over that period, there are years where the capital contribution of the Government of Canada to Via Rail is zero. Zero. You have over $4 billion of assets, and you've got no money to maintain that asset. A rule of thumb in capital maintenance is 3%. If you have $1 million house, you should have 3% on reserve to fix the roof, fix the windows. Via had zero successive years. Okay? So the consequence of that is there was no expertise in-house to manage capital projects because you weren't getting any capital money.
What years were those?
Well, if you look in between 92 up to 2006, there's different years where
Thank you.
it was zero. And so my point I was leading to was you had no expertise. Okay? So then all of a sudden, money started to flow, but you have no expertise, and that's why projects ran late and ran over budget. So we professionalized it, having a project management office and having professionals who know how to manage projects, and early results after only 18 months of this PMO, current projects are running on time and on budget. So we're very encouraged by that, but it's, again, I think you have to take an historical perspective to understand why it got to that situation. We didn't have the expertise to manage capital projects because we weren't getting capital.
So thank you for clarifying that, but now on to the performance measures. So what are the key ones? You mentioned profitability by train.
Yeah.
So what are other key measures that you're working on?
Well, so so profitability by train is an important one. The other issues have to do with, for example, absenteeism, health and safety in terms of the workforce. That as well has come down, in terms of our rate of absenteeism is down, our sick leave time is down, productivity is up, employee engagement is up. We measure our full capacity, which is available seat miles on the network. And then what is the cost for every available seat mile? What is the revenue for every available seat mile? These are measures that exist in the transportation industry for decades. They did not exist at Via Rail.
So have you set targets and where you want to be in those measures?
Yeah, and so we've moved our our revenue coverage of our cost, okay, we've moved that almost 10% over the last 24 months. Okay? So we're still obviously operating at a deficit, but we've gone over the 50% mark. So our funding is around 47% of our actual cost, whereas when I took over, it was around 51 or 52.
Thank you very
So
much,
it's quite an
Mr.
improvement.
Siciliano.
Yeah.
We'll now move to Mr. Polyev, please, for 5 minutes.
Exhibit 5 shows a gap between expected benefits and actual results. It says here that initial project expected benefits set out by the corporation in 2007 included improvements made to tracks and infrastructure, station infrastructure that would be done with a cost of $1.6 million per kilometer and build 160 kilometers. In reality, it built 70 kilometers, so roughly half of the expected amount, at a cost of $4.5 million per kilometer. So we had roughly half the kilometers built and at a cost of $70 million more than was originally planned. In the row below, the expected the investment was to build 12 additional trains. The reality was we got 8 trains. We were expected to get reduced travel time. We got increased travel time. We've improved on-time performance which stood at 82%. The actual result was worse on-time performance, average of about 65%. The expected benefit was to be $32 million in additional revenues. The additional revenues were not obtained. There was supposed to be a 23% increase in ridership. Since 2009, there has been a 17% decrease in ridership. This is the gap between the expected benefits resulting from improvements to the Kingston subdivision rail infrastructure. Why is there such a gap between what these between the promised benefits and the actual results?
Well, that is part of what I was answering earlier, is the lack of expertise in-house at VIA at the time of these investment decisions started with poor planning to start with. Okay? So the reality of planning the infrastructure investments at an estimated cost of $1.6 million per kilometer versus the reality of 4.5, that is a planning deficit and not necessarily an actual construction overrun. The other elements with regards to increased trip times, decrease in reliability or on-time performance, those are due to unforeseen growth in freight traffic that at the time of these investments in 2007, nobody expected the grain order, nobody expected the oil surge in terms of oil traffic on tracks, and therefore those operating realities prevented the attainment of the time improvements and on-time performance improvements, which result therefore in the decrease in ridership. Okay, so the only thing on which I can really blame ourselves is on planning poorly the cost of building infrastructure, but as I mentioned earlier, not having the expertise to do it right. These turned out to be guesstimates, and the reality turned out to be different. The other element I would add is on process again, the administrative process of government funding.
Speaking of process,
yes.
The provision of funds for a private sector enterprise for capital investments comes from 3 sources: debt, equity, and retained earnings. You're a state enterprise, so you rely on tax dollars approved by political actors. Is it possible that, we're going to debate about how we can modify the process, but isn't this just a fundamental problem with a Crown-owned corporation? You have to get approval from the shareholder, which is a big, clunky political apparatus?
Well, if it's to get year-to-year funding, absolutely, because the clunkiness of that process is greater than the 12 months you have in a year. That's the problem. But if you have a 5-year funding plan, then you can deal with the clunkiness because at least you've got 4.5 years to deploy the capital. So the pain comes from the fact that it's not only a clunky, difficult, burdensome process, but it's only for 12 months. And so when you get the money halfway through the year, and it's dead of winter and you can't do capital improvements.
Thank you. Wouldn't it make more sense to fund your operation through a per passenger kilometer subsidy, and then ultimately let you set your own capital and operating priorities? Would that not create more market discipline and fund you based on the results you achieve rather than relying on political and bureaucratic players to approve plans made by your company and investments that would follow?
Well, whether it's per kilometer or available seat miles or passenger kilometers at the end of the year or by adjustments, I think the measurement is not as important as the planning horizon and the commitment horizon. I think that is the key issue. If you, a bit like, as you say, in a commercial enterprise, yes, you'd go to the debt markets and you wouldn't contract, debt for a year. You'd contract debt for 10 years, for 20 years, right? When you go to the market for investors, they don't buy stock for 12 months. They buy stock for the long term. So it gives you a planning horizon that is in line with your operating realities. So how we do it, how we fund, how we come up with the formula, to me that is, an element, but the key determinant is long-term funding. So, for example, when we table our corporate plan for the next 5-year period, if the government decided to fund that plan at its requirement or below or above for 5 years, and therefore the funds are secure regardless of change of government, change of policy, change of anything, then the business would unfold commercially. But if a change of government, change of policy, change of minister, change of bureaucrats offends a plan that is in deployment, that's when you get into the situation that we are today. And so that's, and I'm not sure that this is unique to VIA. This is a Crown Corporation reality, I believe.
That was my point at the outset.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harvey.
Being here, of course. Just a few quick questions for you. Number one, we've spent a lot of time talking today about government's responsibility in long-term funding. So I guess 2 stages to my first question. Number one, could you provide us with what your projected deficit's going to be for the 2016 fiscal year?
Patricia, what's the number?
Yes, we did. In the previous corporate plan.
No, I'm just asking you for that number.
What's the number?
What's the number? Sorry.
And would it also be possible, not right here today, but for you to provide us with a list of your 5-year strategic plan?
Oh, definitely. Sure. Yeah.
The financial side of it?
Yeah. So the deficit this year will be most likely just around $300 million or
2016 is 238 million for operating funds and 32 million for pension funds.
So 270.
270, yeah.
270, and the drop from 314 or whatever is really the pension fund.
Right.
Okay? The pension fund calculations have changed tremendously.
I see that I was looking on your website at the 2015 year-end report. I also see that your per-mile employee ratio has gone down substantially too.
Yeah.
Compared to 2011. It kind of peaked in 2013, was a really good year, ratio per employee wise. you had an extremely low per employee ratio, and I see that it is maintaining itself at a lower rate.
Right.
My next question, I guess, is just around the subsidizing of Mr. Poilievre's comment on a per passenger or per mile subsidy, if you were to do it that way. Just a little bit off to the side of that, my question is, I see some of these different routes, especially the rural routes. The subsidies are up to, like, some of them are
90%.
$700 or $800 per passenger on a route. What, in your definition, leading that company, is a fair? Where's the cap on that? Like, at what point do you say we can't subsidize this run to this level and operate efficiently?
Well,
the reason I say that ultimately is because I recognize that it's a Crown corporation.
Right.
And I was looking at Amtrak's website too. I looked at their year-end report from last year, and I see a lot of the similarities between the two companies, right? So it's not a problem that's just Via Rail's problem. I think it's a Crown corporation problem within this industry, the passenger car industry. But what I'm saying is that ultimately, at the end of the day, we need to move towards a direction that's going to see at least a substantial reduction in operating costs that are going to be relying on the government. And while I do agree that we need to try to maintain service to as many geographic areas within this country as possible, I'm asking you that question because I want to know what your opinion is.
Well, so obviously we're the operators, right? And the public policy decision is at another pay grade as to where we run and what we should run. So it is not to me to say what would be acceptable or not acceptable. What is my responsibility, though, is to optimize what is available. And that's why we developed this higher frequency train concept to exploit the commercial viability of the Quebec-Windsor corridor, because we believe that can be run profitably, so profitably that we believe that over the longer term, it can generate sufficient profits to actually eliminate the operating deficits of the public purpose services like the remote areas, as long as we have those. The decision to cap those or to stop that type of service is really a policy decision to be made by the shareholder, not by the operator.
Right. No, I recognize that. But all I was really asking is do you have a number in mind of where you, as the operator, think the plateau for that is? Like, when you look at your strategic plan over the next 5 years and you look at all facets of your business and all geographic areas, do you have an idea in your head per passenger of where you think the cap is on that?
No.
Okay.
Our tack is we can eliminate the subsidy on the Quebec-Windsor corridor, and we can generate sufficient profit to reduce, if not even eliminate, the subsidy on those services. The only place where we seek on those remotes and long-haul services, the only place where we seek profitability as well, because we believe it exists, is on the tourism services of the ocean and the Canadian in the peak summer tourism months. Okay? And that is why we run the Canadian through the Rockies on a profit basis, because it is a tourism offer. Now, if you sit in economy, you're on a subsidized basis because that's an intercity service. Mm-hmm. But if you're in a sleeper car and you enjoy that tourism experience, then it's a tourism offering like any other tourism offering, and it's meant to be profitable.
Just one more, just a quick point. So on this new GPS system, tracking system, what's your estimated return on investment? Like, not just in turn, I want to know the long term, what do you think your return on investment is going to be there? What will that generate in savings for you as a company? And number two, what is your timeline on realizing those savings?
So on the GPS train system, the motivation is first and foremost safety, and therefore it's not an economic justification per se. The financial justification, if one needs one for a safety-related improvement, is twofold. One is it's a much more affordable substitution to positive train control. So positive train control is a signaling system that would cost billions of dollars to install across Canada. And so this is a millions of dollars alternative. So there's a huge return in terms of saving the positive train control investment. And the second element is because it allows for better train handling, which means fuel economies, because the train handling is more efficient, and less accidents or rule violations where the train is immobilized because you violated a rule, crews have to be changed, the passengers wait and are indemnified, and it costs millions of dollars a year. There's sufficient justification there again. So the investment on GPS is fairly small. I think to date it's less than $2 million over 2 years. But compared to $1 billion positive train control investment, or the millions of dollars that we lose by indemnifying passengers who are delayed hours when the train has to stop because the locomotive engineer violated a rule, or the millions of dollars that we save on fuel, because now we monitor the fuel usage as he's idling the train or moving the train down the track. It makes, for locomotive engineers, better users of fuel, and their cost of fuel has gone down. I think we've reduced our fuel consumption by 24%.
I'm sorry, Mr. Desjardins Siciliano, but this is really getting very, very far. You abused it a bit, Mr. Harvey. Mr. Christopherson, I'm really sorry to cut you off, but Mr. Christopherson, the floor is yours.
You can tell you're getting a little experience now, TJ. Right to the last second. Thank you very much, Chair. If I may, first thing I want to do is to respond to my friend, Mr. Polyev, in terms of that clunky apparatus he references. I just want to, for the record, underscore that it's also known as Canadian democracy. And that, my friend and some of his cronies, they would privatize the Office of the Auditor General if they had an opportunity. I want to come to the issue that's actually on the page 3 under background of the AG report, and this will be over to Mr. Lapointe to start. And in paragraph 10, it makes note, I won't read it all, but it says, quote, "To date, the corporation is not," well, let me back up one sentence. In 1978, VIA became a Crown corporation separate from CN. To date, the corporation is not governed by any enabling legislation. VIA obtains the funding it needs through its corporate plan, which is approved once a year, end quote. Given that, I suspect, is my opinion, but I suspect that the biggest behavior change that we need is the federal government in this instance, that's going to be reflected in our report, that there's going to be a priority on that. I'm wondering, I don't understand the difference and how that might affect the fact that government has been part of the problem here in not funding enough money, not doing it in a timely fashion. The notes say that the corporation is not governed by enabling legislation. My question is, if we went down that route with enabling legislation, would that put more pressure on the government to have to at least provide more timely funding announcements, or is it unrelated to anything that we're focusing on here?
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Probably the President of VIA Rail would be in a better position to give you a more detailed answer, but what we have noted is that the fact that there is no enabling legislation means that the mandate of the corporation is not clear. Enabling legislation enables us to clarify the mandate of a corporation. If there is no enabling legislation, then this has to be done through the corporate plan. Perhaps Mr. Desjardins Siciliano could add something on this.
So VIA is a non-agent Crown corporation. There are 47 Crown corporations in the government of Canada, and there are 3 non-agent Crown corporations who do not have enabling legislation. Marine Atlantic, the Ridley Terminals in BC, and VIA Rail Canada. It is the most important Crown corporation without enabling legislation, and as I said, it is a non-agent Crown corporation. It does not bind the Crown. It was created in 1977 as a CBCA company, so it is a commercial entity with all the powers of a normal company, except that it is subject to the Financial Administration Act of Canada, and that's where the appropriations come from. And therefore, it's normal powers of a company to borrow money, to pledge assets, to create equity vehicles for a special purpose or otherwise
Sorry, if I
don't
may.
exist.
I'm
So,
trying to focus on
yeah.
whether it would help us with the issue of government timely funding announcements.
Well, it would help in as much as you would be able, if the government's wish was to establish such rules, for example, multi-year funding, and establish the ability of VIA to pledge assets or borrow money, it would clarify VIA's opportunity to run itself as a business.
So if you had a choice, and by the way, I said Mr. Lapointe.
Mr. Christopherson, your 3 minutes are up. I'm sorry. You've had
Can I have some of TJ's extra 2.5?
4.5.
That's fine, Chair. I understand. Thank you.
I'm really sorry. Monsieur Lefebvre, s'il vous plaît. Merci.
Mr. Lefebvre. Looking at the Auditor General's report, you came here to tell us today that in the past, your strategic planning wasn't successful because you didn't have a dedicated tracts and so forth, because you are an operator and you do not own the rails, the tracks. With a significant investment, it would be possible for you to attain profitability. Your 2011 report and the Auditor General says
investment that was intended to increase ridership by 40% and revenues by 39% within that 5-year period. However, VIA did not succeed in meeting these targets. Actually, it went lower at that point in time. Puis après ça, le rapport du directeur général dit si la société veut assurer sa viabilité.
if a VIA Rail wants to have a long-term profitability or sustainability, you are saying that it would require dedicated tracks. What would the capital requirement be for this type of project for you to reach profitability? Thank you for your question. The capital requirement for a segment of a dedicated track between Quebec, Montreal, Ottawa, and Toronto, and infrastructure would be $2.5 million for the track and the signaling, $1.25 million for electrification, if we wanted to have the electrified line. And this would, of course, be in addition to the new fleet, which would be $1.25 billion. So the total would be around $5 billion. $5 billion in capital investments would make it possible for you to reach profitability. Yes, indeed. And I'm looking at your today's presentation, and you say if there's no change made to VIA's mandate, we will be requiring $850 million in funding and $650 in infrastructure, or capital costs rather. If we were to spend $5 billion, then it would possible to reach profitability. Yes. We think that it could be possible to fund this from sources other than the Government of Canada, this $5 billion. What exactly do you mean by this? In the case of the Caisse de dépôt in Quebec, retirement plans, teachers' pension fund, PSIB, all these are investors in rail networks throughout the world. For 15 years now, Canadian retirement plans have been investing throughout the world in passenger rails. And they've been getting a return for their investment. It is possible to operate a passenger system if they're able to determine their schedules on the basis of customer requirements, and if they are operating on a commercial basis. We have a Canadian example for this, Canadian National. Until 1995, the Canadian National was receiving subsidies from the Government of Canada of approximately $1 billion. At the present time, Canadian National is generated $1 billion in profits per quarter. Did the freight industry change? We're talking about the same cars, the same models. But it is certainly quite feasible to be profitable. This is why it is possible to attract investors from the outside who are looking for performance. interest rates are extremely low. Opportunity for commercial yields for investors are certainly rare. Infrastructure is a case of consistent yields for a long period of time, and this is why we are very confident in the fact that if the government were to ask us to come up with the funding, 80% of this funds could be found in public markets today. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. For 5 minutes.
Yes, I'm looking at your key operating statistics by service group, and it shows here that even in the most profitable corridor, I shouldn't say most profitable, it's not profitable, the corridor that loses the least money, your passenger kilometer subsidy is still 27 cents. Passenger mile subsidy is still 27 cents. Do you have any comparisons for what the passenger mile subsidy is for highway use in the same corridor?
No.
Recent study produced by the governments of Quebec, Ontario, and Canada on the subject of high-speed rail between Windsor and Quebec showed that the incremental passenger count that would result would actually not come from cars taken off the road, but passengers taken out of the sky. In other words, you'd be reducing air traffic, you'd be reducing air passenger counts by increasing passenger counts on your trains, rather than reducing the number of vehicles traveling on our highways between Windsor and Quebec City. The airline system is not subsidized, although I know that Mr. Christopherson would like to nationalize it again. In fact, it is a net contributor to the Government of Canada. It pays, the airlines pay corporate taxes, fuel taxes, they indirectly pay airport rents, they pay for the passenger pays for the cost of security as part of the fees that you pay to get on board an airline. Why should taxpayers be subsidizing a money-losing mode of transportation at the expense of a money-generating mode of transportation?
So I believe, Mr. Chairman, that the honourable member it might be quoting from the 2012 ECO train study, or
it's the study that the three governments did.
Exactly. So it's the 2012 ECO train study, and that is a study for high-speed rail, and that is why, partially, why we don't believe in high-speed rail. High-speed rail is a simple, direct substitution of air traffic for train traffic, and that means three things for the consumer. One, the price of a train ticket, of a high-speed train ticket, is equal or greater than a plane ticket. Proof, Europe today. In Europe today, all high-speed train tickets are higher costing than flights. Second reason why high-speed is not a good idea for consumers. A high-speed train typically does not stop under 300 to 400 kilometers. That means that it would do Quebec, Montreal. Wouldn't stop in Portneuf, wouldn't stop in Drummondville. It would go from Montreal to Toronto. It wouldn't stop in Cornwall, Belleville, Kingston. It would go from Ottawa to Toronto. Wouldn't stop in Peterborough. Wouldn't stop in Markham. It would go from Toronto to Windsor. Wouldn't stop in Aldershot. That's the second reason.
We're short on time, but I do appreciate your candor on the subject, though, because I think you're absolutely right. I'm glad to hear you say it. But the point I was making is that the study also demonstrates that rail often does not compete with highway traffic. It competes with airline traffic, even when it's not high speed. And so we are subsidizing a mode of transportation that loses money at the expense of one that makes money. That's just the reality. I point to example, the Winnipeg and Churchill per passenger subsidy is $1,000. That's just the subsidy. That doesn't include the fare. What is a plane ticket from Winnipeg to Churchill?
There are no planes. between the 42 stops between Winnipeg and Churchill, there are no planes. That is why the Government of Canada provides service. It's the same thing on the Canadian from Toronto to Vancouver. On the over 200 stops on that line, there are no planes. On some of those stops, there are no roads. That is why the Government of Canada provides rail service. But that is not my preoccupation. It's my duty to do that as long as the government asks me to do it. My preoccupation is the Quebec-Windsor impression that is being made that the traffic growth would come from planes. As I was trying to demonstrate, and what I just said applies there too. If you're in Drummondville, you're in Cobourg, you're in Belleville, you're in Aldershot, you do not have a plane alternative. Okay? The high-frequency train project that we have demonstrate that it will eliminate 5 million car trips. How many car trips between Montreal, Ottawa, and Toronto per year today? 38 million. 38 million. And they have no substitution because there is no plane, obviously. Okay, so that's where that traffic is coming from. There will be some coming from planes, but on the total corridor, there's 45 million trips. 8% is by plane, 6% is by train, the rest is on the road. That is where we have to come up with an alternative to get people out of those cars, killing our children and our future with carbon gas emissions, putting them on a train where they can be not only safer and faster into the cities, but more productive while they're doing it. Okay? So that's the approach here. So
thank you very much.
That correction.
Thank you very much, Mr. Siciliano. Mr. Christofferson, please, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. First off, I just wanted to say, Mr. Siciliano, I have a lot of chief operating officer, executive officers, and presidents here. I am impressed with your command of your file. I am very impressed, and I'm not easily impressed. So it doesn't necessarily mean I agree with everybody, but I got to tell you, your command of your file is noteworthy. Really, it is.
Thank you.
I want to come back to the issue of the.
Is there a butt coming?
No. You've watched before, or you've been briefed. Nope. Stand alone. I want to return now to my earlier line of questioning around enabling legislation. It sounded like Mr. Siciliano, that you were in favor. The Auditor General said it would be an improvement. Is that a recommendation that you would actually make in terms of helping us hold the government to account in terms of them providing timely funding announcements?
Well, I think enabling legislation would be a great addition for management, and I'll let Mrs. Mowat talk for the board. But as I said, as I take over as CEO of this company, it is left to me and my management team to develop a strategy that we believe to be in the best interest of the corporation, because we are officers of the company, and therefore by law, as a CBCA company, we have to do what's in the best interest of its stakeholders, which includes everyone, from its shareholders to its suppliers to its employees to its passengers. And but we define that, and that's a bit unusual, and therefore that clarity would be welcome from a management point of view. And
can we leave it at that, sir? And if I can go over to Mr. LaPlante, and my apologies for mispronouncing your name earlier. I think you had said that you would see it as an improvement in terms of from your point of view. Is that correct? I don't know what word you
Yes, this is correct.
Yeah. Okay, great. So there's something for us to consider. Also, this business of freight being a priority on the tracks that you have to share with over people. Can somebody give me what the even if you don't agree with it, what the underlying rationale is? Why are things more important than people?
Well, I don't think it's a matter of things being more important than people. It's who owns the infrastructure and who controls it. And so you make operating decisions as to which trains go first based on your operating imperatives and commercial operatives as an owner. And that's the first thing. Second thing is, the reality is that Canada's economy depends on freight railway traffic. $300 billion a year of freight is moved on these railways, and we are an exporting country. So we need to make sure they're efficient. That's why decoupling the two.
So that's your answer, is moving to that separate.
That would be good for both of us.
That's where I want to
Right?
go to now for as long as I can. How do you go about that? I was surprised that you could do that on your own. Do you have to buy because there's land to be acquired? I was the municipal council. I know what it takes just to do roadways.
No, so
here we're talking about a railway. Can you help me with that?
So what we are proposing to do, and the reason that it's so cheap somewhat and so fast to deploy, is that we would acquire existing freight railway beds and repurpose them for passenger rail that are currently abandoned or of very little use.
Right.
And so we would operate them, and the freight traffic that runs on those tracks today, which is usually like a train a day or 2 trains a week, we would control when it runs, and obviously we'd make it run when we're not running passenger trains.
Then we'd flip it around.
Exactly.
Since it's yours,
Exactly.
ours being the Canadian people, then people would come first and then the freight.
That's why this can be done so quickly. And on the issue of enabling legislation, if I could just complete, Mr. Chairman, is that in the past there have been ideas of enabling legislation, but they were getting in the weeds of running the railway. That's not the approach that we would propose here. The approach we propose here is more of an approach that enables the company to run itself, give a specific mandate, whether it be environmental, whether it be car traffic competition, whether it be remote areas, right? And then let the company run itself like any corporation should, and therefore it will eliminate its need for government subsidy, first and foremost. And secondly, where there is competition and some are concerned about competing, they'll be competing on a level playing field with no government funding. So that would be the objective of enabling legislation, not mandating that you have a station at this place or that place, that you run a train at 9:05 versus 9:25. Or the other fallacy is that that law would give priority to passenger trains over freight trains, like it does in the U.S. And the U.S. legislation makes that statement, but if you talk to my colleague, the CEO of Amtrak, he'll tell you that's worth nothing, because you're on a network. So it doesn't matter that you're the first to go. If you're going at 100 miles an hour and there's a freight train 200 miles ahead of you that's going at 30 miles an hour, how fast will you meet them? It's not you don't have to answer that question.
That's good. That's good.
But if you're the CEO, of Amtrak or Via Rail, you're going to meet them too fast, too often. Okay, that's the reality. So giving priority to trains that are on a network is a bit of a red herring. Really, it's not a solution.
Catch-22. It doesn't work for you. Yeah, great. Thank you so much. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. I think we're going to have to end it there. We have 15 minutes of very, very short. You were on the list. I'll give you a very short.
Thank you so
only
much.
because you filled in so well while I was tabling a report. Go ahead.
Go look at the record.
Ms. Mendez, order, please.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Merci à vous.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank all of you for being here today. I simply wanted to make a comment relating to Transport Canada. You said something at the beginning of your presentation. When we are talking about monitoring the safety of the tracks, the entire network, in fact, can you tell me whether the role of Transport Canada is to reassure you as a user who does not have control over the tracks that it is in compliance with security standards and so forth? Is it not the role of Transport Canada? Certainly. The safety inspections are normally carried out jointly with people from Transport Canada. In some cases, we do them ourselves, and if we find that there is some defect, then Transport Canada is involved. The determination is always made jointly. And the same is true for CN. In the case of Sienna, it's Transport Canada that looks after it without us. We don't have any inspection sites. But you do require the involvement of Transport Canada to show whether it's safe or not. Transport Canada does allow CN to operate, but we are not involved in any transactions of this type between them.
Commend you, as Mr. Christopherson did, but also our Auditor General's Department for very good work and for a meeting that I felt was very informational. All of us, I think, understand much more the work, the challenges, the measures that you're going to be putting in place to improve and also to be certain of the safety that has been mentioned. So thank you very much for your attendance here today. If you leave here and you all of a sudden think, you know, there could have been a little more I could have given on one answer. I could have supplemented that answer to help the committee do their work. We will be doing a report on this, and any further information would be gladly appreciated if you would send that to our clerk. And so thank you, committee. We're going to suspend for about a minute or 2 minutes just to allow you to thank our guests and allow them time to leave, and we will come back on some very important committee business, please. We're suspend.
you.